Thank you for having me on this, Marni and Jennifer. I appreciate it.
Yes, we're very excited. Do you want to say just a little bit about what inspired you to want to write a show about Teddy Roosevelt?
Well, I do a lot of one-person shows. I've done a lot of them. And there was something about the current political situation that really spoke to me, and then I brought it to you, and I actually looked at several presidents, and Theodore was the one who stuck out for you and I, for both of us, when I brought it to you that one time.
Remember when we used to be able to meet in Starbucks?
Yes. To be in the same room.
That was the good old days.
Oh, that was so long ago. Yeah, that was the ancient history. But I think this has been such a process of really understanding a totally different time and understanding what leadership really means. You know, I think we started to look at things like that, what it's like to be an American in the last show, A Jewish Joke, or a guy who really wasn't a reluctant hero who didn't want to have that role thrust upon him, and he did.
Right.
To make a choice, he had to make a choice. And this actually, to me, sometimes feels like a continuation of thinking like that, you know?
Yeah, I know, I feel the thread too. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pop out and let you take over, and I can't wait to see it.
Okay, so currently it's in a reading stage, and we'll be opening this for my theater company, the rousetabouts.org. It'll be showing sometime the end of September, October. Can I have some quiet, gentlemen? Gad, just give me the number. The number. How many workers are striking? Just the number. Come on, out with it. What is it? 5,000? 10,000? What? No one said you could sit. Stand up. Stand up and address me directly. No, I don't think that's correct. 140,000 men on strike. I surely would have. Well, what about the pumpmen? The engineers? The firemen? Surely they're still at work? So all our public works are crumbling. Is that what you're telling me? And what about the owners? Will they at least sit down to talk? Oh, for heaven's sake! 184 of their own men just died in that damn explosion in Freighterville. Call Morgan, tell him the owners have at least got to pretend to listen. Get out of my office. No, leave the papers. I need to read them carefully. When you hear back from Morgan, I'll be in the boxing ring with, you. Yes, you. Suit up. Now, I need to clear my head. Charge the bear. You've been in his territory for a day and a half. He is not happy about it. You know he's just around the bend. You push through the brush and foliage in the darkest part of the forest. You turn into a sunlit clearing. There he is. He is enormous. He must remove you. You are near his den now. He sees you. He growls. He starts to come for you. What do? Coal has all but stopped, which means the trains will stop. The factories will stop. Everything will come to a grinding halt. And heat. When the winter comes, there'll be no heat. No heat. A disaster. No coal. I am overwhelmed with the thought that I could be the first American president that allows Americans to die in the streets, to literally freeze to death in their homes. And the damn pig-headed owners will not get in the room to listen to one word from the workers. George Bear is the silk-shirted mouthpiece of the mine owners. I said to him, just imagine, you wake up in the morning You live in a rat-infested shack that the company owns. You get ready for a 10 or 11-hour workday for which you get paid next to nothing. You kiss your wife and children goodbye. You head into the mine and you walk into a wall of methane gas and the whole damn thing explodes. You escape, barely, with your life. But that night, you watch the rest of the men on your street being brought back, bodies in winding sheets. You watch the widows and children get kicked out of company housing. And then you have to get up the next day and walk into that mine not knowing if you will come out. And you do this every day. Of course they are striking. And do you know what he said? He poured himself another tall drink and he said, anthracite mining is a business. It is not a sentimental or religious endeavor. Oh, and that I had no right at all to intervene in any way. That if I did, I would face a backlash from the operators that would leave me on the ground, flopping around like a sad fish, wondering what happened to my presidency. They wanted me to sit down and shut my mouth. But I never did do that very well. I have 2 months, maybe 3, to change the direction of this ship or we are going to sink. The last telegram said the strikers in Pennsylvania are starting to riot. Looks as if the mob is now growing every minute. And I'm in charge. The bear is now stalking me. You know, it was 1 year ago that I walked through those White House doors as president. Big things to do, no time to do them. I'm giving a speech for the working men of this great nation at a train station and shaking hands afterwards. I take my issues directly to the people. I love seeing America, the hope in the eyes of every man. I had to go out there and see this country for myself. President to American, eye to eye. I do love to hit the ground running. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Delighted. Yes. Yes, ma'am, we do live in a wonderful country. Happy to meet you. Hello, a baby. Oh, bully little fellow. South Dakota, I know it well. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you. A Democrat. Well, everyone is welcome. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for coming. Yes, I do remember you from Mrs. Astor's parties. Good seeing you too. Delightful morning. Yes, thank you all. I tell you, my good people, this will be an American century. Yes, an American century, my friends. Change is in the air. If we do things right, if we grow, and at the same time protect who and what we have, our country could just be the leader of the entire pack. Think of it. City skies filled with skyscrapers, electricity lighting up the streets, homes overflowing with food, American cotton everywhere in Europe, smiling children listening to phonographs, innovation everywhere you turn, automobiles, telephones, sewing machines, flying machines. Like me, I know you all can feel it. It's written in the stars. This country will belong to us, the American people. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank all of you. Hello, young man. Are you keeping up with your studies? A coal miner from Pennsylvania. So young. Isn't that something? Bully, how are things going there for you? Yes, I will fight for you too. Yes, I am your friend. I will read your letter. My man Cortelyou will keep it safe for me to read. I'll tell you all a secret. The good people of this nation handed me and mailed me all kinds of letters. My assistant Cortelyou, good man, used to take them from me and hide them in the bottom of his desk. to unburden me from reading one request after another. But late at night, especially when I couldn't sleep, I'd head into Cortelyou's office, take them all back, and read all night long. Delighted to meet all of you. Thank you all. I returned to my office. Up the steps, I like to take 2 at a time. It's good for the heart. Went to my desk, sat down to think. But it was thick and muggy in that room. So I turned to my staff and I said, how about a brisk hike through the woods and up the bluff? You won't need walking shoes. Got the strangest looks after that question. I could see they all thought, he can't mean that. What about lunch? 4 hours later, as we scrambled over the hills and we reached the Potomac River, they all wanted to turn back. I said, who's up for a swim? Sometimes a good swim in the Potomac helps me to sleep, but not that night. My mind tossing and turning, I snuck into Cortelyou's office, grabbed hold of all that mail. Here's the letter. Dear Mr. President, my name is Sam Lovakis. I am a miner in Eastern Pennsylvania. I'm writing to you because I saw you talk to a lot of people once in Oil Creek. Oh, yes. You are the only man I hear talk about knowing what our life is like. You may not get to read this. I was born here, but my parents are from Slovenia. My father was nearly killed in a collapse 3 years back and can't walk now. The other people, they don't want us here. I'm 13. My brother Lucas is 9. He's a breaker boy. He's really smart for 9. He should be in school. Lots of times here he can't breathe good. Already he coughs up black. The men here talk about the strike. What would you do? Well, we are going to need a full report on this. Slavic. I understand this young man more than he may think. Kermit, I don't think your mother wants that pony in the White House. Oh, look at you. You took him through the mud patch. Turn him around. Oh, he's riding the horse through the dining room. Oh, well. I'm not even supposed to be here. Truth is, many men don't want me here. I wasn't exactly elected for this job. September 12th, 1901, I was the vice president. I was with my family in the Adirondacks in the snow, having ourselves a time on Mount Marcy. We're making our way to the cabin, hot apple cider, 2-mile hike up the hill. I sit down in front of the fire to reread the Pickwick Papers, a little Sophocles, some of Abraham Lincoln, 4 volumes Norse mythology, when I see a man struggling up the mountain carrying a telegram. My heart sinks. I think back to the incident the last week. You see, the week before, the president had been shot. President McKinley. He was in Buffalo at the Pan American Exposition, simply shaking hands with the people of our nation, when this anarchist walks right up to him with bravado and terror in his eyes and shoots him in the chest twice. The president's bodyguards tackled the crazed man. Do you know, McKinley was aware enough to say, don't hurt him, not to hurt his assailant. Led our nation in the Spanish-American War. He was rushed away to the hospital and into surgery. He seemed to be on the mend. They told me he'd recover. Doctors. They told me to take a break. Well, he did. Then the telegram came. It read, the president is critically ill. His condition is grave. Oxygen is being given. Absolutely no hope. So I kissed my wife and children goodbye, and I began a 7-hour ride to North Creek Station. But as we rode that bumpy trail, braving hellish terrain, rain pouring down in sheets throughout the black night, I had to have a small chuckle. You see, a year or so back, there were men of great power. J.P. Morgan, Carnegie, Rockefeller. These men, do you know how much money they contributed to the campaign of Mr. McKinley? I wouldn't find out until after we were elected. I was nothing to them but a loud nuisance. They wished to dispose of me, especially the most powerful man in Washington, Senator Mark Hanna. Roosevelt, Roosevelt, Roosevelt. This whole convention is going headlong mad for Roosevelt. We must tuck this Roosevelt away like a bug that you want to crush, but you can't just yet. So for now, I tell you, we must stick that crazed cowboy in a place where no one will care how much he rants and raves, where he will have no effect, no power at all. The vice presidency. And this was from the friendly side of my party. You see, after the Rough Riders in the battle for San Juan Hill, I had the pride of the country shining in my face. It was the war for Cuba, my first for my country, and a victory. Taking the hill back from Spain, my crowded hour. You see, Hanna hated me, but he came to think I'd look good on the ticket. I wasn't inclined to accept the slot of vice president, but you know, when I opened my mouth to decline, I found out somehow that I'd accepted. And I remained in that particular lame corner with nothing much to do. You know, one time, I walked into the office when Hanna and the president were discussing the railroads. They immediately stopped talking, shooed me out, like a delivery boy with the wrong address. But as I breathed in the air, in that carriage racing down those rocky hills towards the moment I'd be sworn in as the next president, I felt a new energy flowing through me. Why? Because fate had just handed me the presidency at this precarious moment in our nation's young history. Imagine this. From 1870 to 1900, just 30 years, US population had almost doubled. Hungry immigrants had arrived from all over the world to work in our factories, our mines. Industry was booming. The fat cats at the helm, the men of big business were prospering. Oh, they'd never dreamed of such wealth. Fat indeed. Yet I could see the toll such fast expansion was having on this country. The cities were filthy, overcrowded, depletion of natural resources, but what troubled me the most was the condition of the working men. Poor, dangerous even. It was a situation that could not be maintained. You could feel the pot about to boil over. Somehow I knew I was the man to handle it. Even so, I arrived at the White House and I was met with rave reviews. Loose cannon, unpredictable, too much of a mouth. And my favorite from Mark Hanna, now that damn cowboy is president. So very early on, I assured them all, in this hour of terrible bereavement, I wish to state that I shall continue unbroken the policies of President McKinley for the peace, prosperity, and honor of this nation. Almost an audible sigh of relief across the land. For many, that declaration eased their fears. You know, sometimes in this job, you have to be everyone's father. And yet I knew there were some who knew me, well, a little too well. Especially Hanna. I needed him. I had very few friends in Washington, and he knew it. Still grieving over the death of his best friend, McKinley, Senator Hanna came to visit me at the White House, ashen-faced, but eyes all smoldering fury. It's very good to have your counsel, Senator Hanna. Very, very good. An honor, truly. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but we are in the same great Republican Party after all, and I know we ultimately want the same things for our dear country. I could tell he wanted to spit at me. I'd be very much obliged to meet regularly, sir, and I'd sincerely hope that we could be friends, much as you and President McKinley were good friends. As I said that, he stood up. He made sure he was looking down at me. His eyes were now flames of fire. Teddy, he knew how much I hated that nickname. Teddy, Teddy. I say this as your friend, as a man in the know, as a man with powerful friends. McKinley's life was cut down before he could finish his important work. Our platform is solid. Our direction is solid. The country loves what McKinley stood for. They elected McKinley. Touché. Apparently, my 22,000 miles on the campaign trail had absolutely nothing to do with that. And then he sits down a little too comfortably in my office. He pulls out a cigar and starts to puff. So, Teddy, we all want his legacy to be honored. You can just see the risk of panic on Wall Street with you at the helm. So, before you think about coming in here with your childish cowboy ways, his favorite way to describe me, flapping your gums to all the newspaper men who listen to you spout your nonsense, I asked you to do the smart thing, because I do think that you are a smart young man, and I know that you will just leave well enough alone, Mr. Roosevelt. That's President Roosevelt? Of course it is. For now. But there'll be no parades for you. You can't possibly win a second term as someone who inherited something in the face of tragedy. You may be nothing but a hiccup in American history. Then he stood up, he blew that cigar smoke right in my face and walked out. Cigar smoke in my face. When I was a small boy, I had the asthma, used to go absolutely blue with it. One night when I was 4, I nearly died. I couldn't find breath. Surely something was sitting on my chest. I tried to push it off, little fists pumping. I can see in Father's eyes, he thinks he might lose me tonight. They pushed that awful cigar smoke into my face, pour coffee down my throat, anything to make me throw up. Delightful. Still the only remedy for it. Father scoops me up, he takes me outside. The cold, fresh air is pushing me forward. I draw in the smallest breath. His arms around me. Hold on, you're going to be okay. Didn't think I'd make it to 6. No one did, except my father. You don't forget waking up in the middle of the night, gasping, fighting like that for every breath. Kermit! I said none of the large animals in the East Room. A pig. All right. Throw Ethel on his back and maybe you can get them both outside. You know, my father always made us do what was right. He let me watch the stickball games through the window. He let me lick my wounds. For a time. But soon, he was restless with my hiding. So when the other children ran outside and I chose to stay in again, with my dead squirrels. He pulled me aside. He said, "My boy, you can't live your life like this. Scared, afraid to walk outside your home, afraid of getting sick. We have to do something." What could we do? He presented me with big brown boxing gloves. He said, "My boy, these are your weapons now. You must make your body, Theodore. You will see that you are not powerless." So I put on the gloves. I punched that sack of sand, that punching bag. It barely moved. I punched again, and again, and again, and again, and again. I punched so hard I thought I'd cracked my hand. "General Schofield, meet me in the lodge house at 11 p.m. this evening. And General, tell no one. Roosevelt." There it is. You know, I've kept that young miner's letter in my pocket. I think because of what he said to me at the very end. You see right here, when Sam smelled the methane gas and he took himself and his mule out into the fresh air. Well, listen, I take my mule and we go outside. I think I coughed 5 minutes. I couldn't breathe. The boss came by and said for me to go back inside the mine, finish the day's work. So I grabbed my mule to go back in. But the boss said the mule looked bad and he should stay outside to breathe the air and feel better. That mule is important. That mule is important. The boss said that he was less than a mule. No better than a mule. There was a time when I would have read that letter and left it on my desk, and filed it away, went on about my day. You see, I didn't always know the people of this nation. Hannah was right. I'd grown up privileged and apart. But in my time in the Badlands, South Dakota, I experienced everything. Spirit, the character of men. I'd gone to the Badlands. I went because something happened to me, something large in a young life. I went there and I threw myself in that world because I had to. About 20 years ago, I'd been made Assemblyman of New York. I built myself an expensive house on Oyster Bay, Long Island, and I married a beautiful girl, Alice. We were expecting our first child. It was Valentine's Day when I called home to New York City to our house on East 20th Street. I'd received a telegram that Mother was sick and the birth of our child wasn't going as well. I'd been busy with the legislature. I arrived to a house full of doctors. 2 hours later, Mother died from typhoid fever. Before the sun came up, Alice died as well. The same night. But the baby was healthy. Complications. Bright's disease. No one caught it. There was nothing but the void for me then. I buried Mother and Alice. I left the new house I built for her. I left my newborn daughter with my sister. I didn't know how to look into her face. Doubt. Nothing made sense anymore. I never speak her name or talk of her with her daughter, Alice. And I swore I would not return to politics. I threw myself at that life in the West, looking for, well, I don't know exactly. Many nights I sat in the bitter cold and I cursed everything. But the endless rain and the mud. This was a beautiful, harsh land made from the roughest elements on the earth. And the toughest men I'd ever met, the cowboys and the sharpshooters, why, they laughed at me at first. Who is this New York dandy prancing about with his 4 eyes? Why is he here on our land? But I stayed. In those valleys, when I found it hard to think, I pushed myself harder for distraction. 16 hours on the horse, stampedes with the cowboys, directly into the center of danger, riding no matter how cold it got, testing my strength, anything to put me right on that edge, not to feel that. And yet today, those memories are my fondest, because it was there that I met and understood the American people. I worked in the barn with the hired hands. I slept in the mud with the cowboys. When one man was sick, his neighbor took care of his cattle. One man was robbed. We all banded together to capture the thieves. One man's cattle was wiped out. We vowed to help the man feed his family. I went back. That time made me what I am. I had to become something else. Maybe something the American people needed. October 13th. I am meeting in absolute secret with the commander of the army, while the rest of Washington screams at me all about outside. As I made my way inside the lodge house, I remember what Hannah said to me just after my election. Do you realize the only thing standing between that madman and the White House is a bullet? The madman is in charge, indeed. General Schofield, I know that we have made only rough plans as to this situation before now, but I will need your full attention at this moment. The conflict in the coal fields has gotten to a point no one ever dreamed it would reach. I need this kept in the strictest confidence. I need you to listen carefully. I'm going to ask you to report to no one but me on this, not another living soul in the government. Gentlemen of the press, please let me tell you that I am siding with neither the owners nor with labor. I must be on the side of the people, and you can quote me on that. Mr. Cortelyou, please, I need you to let me know the moment you get any pushback from Mr. Baer and the mine owners in the next 24 hours, General. You are to move the troops closer to the mines. You must keep your intentions closely guarded. Any official statement will be that you are there to protect against anarchy or violence. At my signal, General, Senator Hannah, this has been discussed before. We both spoke of sending troops to the coal field for everyone's common welfare and protection. Congressman, please, I know no secret plans. I deal with remedies here. I am indebted to you, the House and the Congress and the Senate, for your lack of interference these last days, but there is consequence in the air, sir, and anarchy in the streets. I know there are limits as to due process in the Constitution, but the Constitution was made for the people, sir, and not the people for the Constitution. At my signal, General, at my signal, you will invade Pennsylvania. Let me finish, sir. You will go directly to the separate mine facilities, have your subordinates take control, secure the facilities from interfering civilian forces, or indeed any Pennsylvania state troops, and bring the strike to an end. You will effectively take the mines from the owners on behalf of the miners. Yes, we will seize the property from the owners. Silence. A wave of understanding runs between us. I am declaring war on the mine owners. He looked at me and nodded. He took his commands and left. A drastic plan that only 2 men in the world were aware of. Thank you. That is it.
That was incredible. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. You are just so fabulous. Like, that was so fun to watch in the background, all of it. Marni, have you joined us?
I was so entrenched in it.
I know. I was like,
click on
unmute, yeah.
What's gonna happen next?
It's funny. We both look at it and listen to it now. Like, oh God, I've got to cut that word. I've got to go back and get that sentence.
Well, it's on some level, but on another level, it was just like watching it come to life, and that's what's so magical about, you know, I watched you do that with Jewish Joke, and now here it almost just feels like you're just making it up in the moment.
Yes, I am. I'm making it up.
I know that's not true because it's been years, but there's something, I don't know, very organic about the way you perform it.
Thank you.
It's magnetic.
I love this man so much. He was not a perfect American, and we keep finding these things out. We keep finding these things out about all the presidents.
Yeah.
But this man worked very hard to do what he hoped was right. What he hoped was right.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, there's someone out there who maybe wants to do their own one-person show. What would you tell them to do? How would they get started?
Well, a one-person show is a thing that you have to be really passionate about, I think. Something that you really, really love.
Really.
We've worked 3.5 years on this.
Really.
So it's got to be something, because a one-person show is very much, even though you're not talking directly to the audience, not all the time, you are presenting something, your most cared about ideas to that captive audience. So it'll be hard to get across if you don't really believe in it.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of bringing Jewish Joke? I know you toured a lot and then bringing it off Broadway.
Yeah, Jewish Joke was quite another process entirely. I've done a lot of comedy, and I started to do a collection of looking at the history of Jewish humor, even though my name is Johnson. And it became clear when I was working with you that it was about so much more, and he needed a really, really challenging setting, which became the communist blacklist in the 50s. So that was a joy to work on that with you and realize it was about something amazing, you know? And so it was just a process of constantly honing this guy. What could we put him through? How could we show his humanity? How could we make him really get out there and breathe? So we made the funniest man in the world have the worst day in the world. He had the worst day in the world. And he had to make a decision at the end. Was he ever going to stand up for something? It had to be now or never. So that was, and now I have my own theater company, but I know a lot of people in town, and it was, I think, easier for us to start getting people listening to it, you know, for us to do little readings of it at my house or wherever we needed to do, and to start getting feedback. I always feel very strongly about getting feedback early, even if it's a pile, if it's a mess at the moment, get some feedback. Is it a good idea? You know, is it a good idea? Is it something that works? So then you start getting a little bit of a network around the show, and a one-person show needs to kind of develop a little bit of a momentum. So you enter it in contests, or anytime you see something where there's an opening for a one-person show, send it in. Just send it in. It's like
you want to talk a little bit about United Solo, because I know you took this there as well.
Yes, that was the biggest surprise of the world. We entered that, I didn't know exactly what it was, and we entered it, and I was rehearsing a play at the same time for David Ellenstein at North Coast Rep. And I had 2 days to go to New York and do that festival show. So I went there, and we really didn't exactly know what we had yet. We didn't know what it was yet. So I went to this festival, and you get literally, what did we have, 45 minutes? Or an hour? I don't remember now. I think it was an hour. And you have 5 minutes to set up and 5 minutes to tear down. So I took it in, and I did it. I went through my day, and then it was over. Get out. I flew back to San Diego, and I found out afterwards that we had won Best Drama.
Wow. Which
was a surprise because we both thought it was more comedic at that point.
That's true.
So we realized we really had something that was fascinating. I think that's what kind of taught us that it was something more than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
And any chance you get with a one-person show to put it in front of people, I think is good for you. What do they think of it? You don't always have to take their notes, but you want to feel how people are taking it. You know, I did Roosevelt for a very short run in Los Angeles. At a friend of mine has a small theater, and there was nothing more telling to me than putting it up for, I think I did it for 4 days in a row with small audiences, but really feeling, it was something that you and I learned something big out of the writing. There's a moment towards the end which was dragging, and we needed to fix that. But it is, a one-person show is all about, do you connect with the people every second? Because if you lose them, there's no more interesting people here. It's always your next line, you know? So
what's that like to not have anyone to play off of?
I always want to say, line? Anyone. Oh, it's me.
Still me.
Still me. There's a wonderful thing that comes when you know it well and you understand it, that you start to trust yourself and you're saying something that's so aligned with who you are. I learned so much doing a Jewish joke, so much about myself, principles. There's a wonderful idea from the Jewish faith called tikkun olam, which is repair the earth. And that's always been something to me that's been one of the most important ideas I can spread out there, that I can put out.
And I think that's part of what we were hoping with Teddy. I mean, again, we have learned in our research that he's not a perfect person, but someone that really did want to help heal the earth literally, environmentally, and, you know, give people a square deal.
Right.
You know, and something else I learned by watching you do a Jewish joke was you would sink into the character and own it more and more. You know, and by the time you toured the country and then came back, it was almost like a different show. And I was like, what? How did you do that? So I'm
going to interject. I'm sorry. I'm just going to interject real quick because it's possible that we're going to lose our Facebook feed because we're coming up on our hours, but I don't want to stop. And I want to tell everyone who's watching right now, if we go down, we're going to come right back. So we're going to keep the conversation going and we're going to go a little bit after 6. So we're just going to keep going. And I'm sorry I interrupted, but we don't want to lose you. So I'm going to jump off, but keep going.
Great. Thank you.
So I'm curious and excited to see how that happens with Teddy. How it just sort of sinks into your bones and become different lines spring from another place that I could have never have predicted.
Right, right. Yeah, that's the great thing about doing it in a lot of different places. I just got to know that guy in a Jewish joke so well, you know, and that's what I'm hoping to get from Roosevelt. And that's why I say for someone who's putting a one-man show together, enter it, throw it out there, just put it in front of people when you can so that you understand really what you're presenting to people as much as you can. Contests, anything that comes up, do it.
Can you talk a little bit about the workshopping process? Because that's what we're doing in essence right now, even having it on today when it's not finished. What's that like to workshop something, to be putting something out and you know it has rough edges, or you know you want to, you know, what's that experience like? Because I can hide over here. What's it like to be the one that's, you know, the face of it all?
I've done a lot of shows, so I've done a lot of things where I'm a ridiculous clown. So I'm used to being in kind of somewhat humiliating situations on stage. So there is something I've learned. There's a wonderful feeling I've learned about that. There's a feeling of comfort with, even if it goes badly, just keep talking.
Keep talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep
I like
talking.
that. I like that. Yeah, I always go, my mind flashes to a scene that you did where you were churning butter once. I think it was in Wuthering Heights, which if I'm ever sad in my life, I can call back to that moment, and it is just fills me with endless joy.
I think the churning butter scene was, I was sitting there in a ridiculous accent, and I was a milkmaid.
You were a milkmaid, that's correct.
And I had a napkin on my head. And it was just, I was trying to look like the poor waif. And I know that's probably what made you laugh. You've never let me forget that.
And the terrible thing is that you could hear me laughing, like my specific laughter in the theater. Like I knew though I was distracting you with that, but it was just hysterical.
There's something you learn from comedy like that, is there's something you learn about heart and performance, to let yourself go to that place. And it's been one of my greatest joys, is to understand the humility that you need to find for performing.
So tell us about if how can people see both Roosevelt and also the other one person show that you're putting on, No Way Back. Tell us a little bit about that, what's coming up.
The address is theroustabouts.org. Theroustabouts.org. I think they are either on sale or there you can get the information, and we've got something for you so you can send an email. But what's going to happen is they're going to be filmed, because everything right now is all about how do you get content out. So rather than face that problem of how will we be in the theater, we're going to film both of them and then stream them. So we've just discovered that new magic thing. The other play is an absolutely beautiful play that you worked on with writer Masheed Hager, and her play is No Way Back, which is a wrenching, absolutely sitting on the edge of your seat story about a young girl escaping from Iran during the revolution between the ages of 6 and 9, I believe, and finally escaping to freedom. And it's a fantastic show done by one of San Diego's best actresses, Jessica John, and directed by Fran Gerk. So that was going to be in rep with this show, but now that they won't be in rep, they'll just be filmed at the same time. And I have the wonderful director, Rosina Reynolds, directing our play, Roosevelt.
And right now you have Margin of Error up, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that and how people can get tickets?
Yes, Margin of Error was our first play in 2017, Will Cooper's brilliant play that was very much about ethics and conflict in very, very smart people making very dangerous choices. And it was a play I just loved putting on as the producer. I would watch it every night, like a tennis game. And so we have found a platform for that, and we're putting that out there. So if you go to theroustabouts.org, you can get a streaming ticket for that. It's still playing for another 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, till the 23rd, I believe.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. So we lost our Facebook live stream, and that was the most important nugget of information possible. Okay. So I want to get us back onto Facebook so that you can plug that again.
Okay.
So sorry. But I did put the Roustabouts into the last comment feed. So give me just a second to get you back live. Everybody's loving this conversation, so we don't want it.
How many people are there?
There's still 40 on live. Hopefully we don't lose anybody.
40?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Wow.
I know, right? That's why I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to go down, but come back. We're not going away. We're just going to die for a very small second.
What does it look like to them? Like blackness and then up again?
It says this live video has ended and it'll be available to watch in San Diego. So we just want to get it back up. People are waiting and we'll just get back up. And they're waiting for us because we told them it was going to happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Oh my God. And then I was looking at, while Haley is doing this, I was looking at it, it says 7 hours live. And I was like, oh, it's only 7 hours. But then like a second later, it switched to 8 and it died. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's
You
right.
guys
I
so
can count.
relieved right now? Are you just like so relieved? You're done? You're almost done?
I'm pretty excited. It's bittersweet. Is that what you're going to say, Haley?
Yeah, it's so bittersweet. But I haven't been doing nearly what you guys have been, so.
Well, we're going to stay on afterwards so we can have this conversation because I want to get us back up as live as soon as possible.
It's really impressive, guys. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, you're impressive. Thank you, Phil. Watching you is so much fun. I was dying. I was like, this is so good. It's so good. You like your outfit and you're just such a fantastic actor and you have such a fantastic presence and it's just,
Thank you.
it's
I love this
magnetic.
guy. We've had a great experience putting this together.
Good.
It's been I remember when you guys first started. Are we going live?
I'm gonna push it live just so we don't lose everybody.
I'm going back on Facebook.
I think we're
And
back.
we're live again. So we missed just a little bit. Thank you everyone for sticking with us and for people who are going to be joining in. So Phil, you were telling us about a show. So we'll go back into that. Let's just give it a couple seconds for people to get back on live.
Sure.
Marni,
Yes.
the most exciting thing. I was just going to say, I remember when you were talking about doing the show with Phil and talking about how much work it was going to be and should you do it? And you were really excited about it. And like, now it's happening. And just to see the fruits of your labor I'm so proud of both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So good.
Just this, it's the great part is to have someone that you really enjoy working with, which, you know, we have each other too. And it just makes it all worth it. Like, you know, no matter what was going on with the writing, if I would get to sit and hang out with Phil, it was always a good afternoon.
Right? It's going to be a good time regardless.
Yeah.
So I think people have had enough time. So do you mind if we dive back in and
Go
Phil,
for it.
maybe go back a little bit, Phil, and tell us about what's happening with your next show?
Oh, sure. The two shows, we're putting two shows together. As everybody knows now, streaming is the way that theaters get content out. So we'll be doing this show, Roosevelt Charged the Bear, with another play by a wonderful writer that Marni's worked with, Masheed Hager. And she's written a gorgeous play called No Way Back about a young girl from Iran who escapes during the revolution. And she crosses unbelievable amounts of territory to get to Germany between the ages of 6 and 9. And it's a fantastic story acted by a brilliant actress in San Diego, Jessica John, and directed by another great, fantastic artist, Fran Gerk. And that with my play Roosevelt, our play Roosevelt, directed by Rosina Reynolds, will be playing end of September, beginning of October, as soon as we can get it edited, as soon as we can get it out there. And I'll go on and just say what our offering that we're putting out right now is we've come up with a new platform, our streaming platform with Will Cooper's play, Margin of Error, that is streaming right now till August 23rd, which is a brilliant play, a four-hander play, again, directed by Rosina. And Will's written an incredible play about powerful people, impassioned people who make very dangerous choices and come up against each other. And there's a question of ethics and there's sexual politics. It's very much a ruthless kind of situation in a very genteel setting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something I just loved watching. I loved this play so much. So you can see that right now if you go to theroustabouts.org.
And that plays until the 23rd, you said?
The 23rd. It's called
Okay.
Margin of Error.
It's one of those shows where you can watch it 4 or 5 different times and get something new each time.
Yeah.
That kind of show.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful film. That's something that a lot of plays haven't been able to reach. That's how we compete with Netflix, because plays have to all of a sudden come up to a new level where we're recording them and putting them out there on streaming. So,
what do you think is going to happen for theater we don't know.
We don't know. We've gone and jumped into the streaming platform situation, but we don't know. We don't, and nobody knows how long it's going to last. So we're trying to do some good work, trying to put it out there and stay creative. That's what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you started. I know how hard it is to start a company, and so that you started Roustabouts and that you are supporting new writers. That's huge. New playwrights, getting people's voices out there. That's pretty difficult to do. So thank you for being that champion for the new writer.
Thank you for everything you guys do. This is a wonderful thing for writers in San Diego. Thank you.